I was in the archives of the Helen Hayes Art Foundation, drawing in the warm, familiar scent of aging paper and lingering turpentine when my phone gave a low vibration. It wasn't a text, no cheerful ping, just the flat notification of an email. It was from my sister, Michelle, and she had sent it not just to me, but to the entire family council. My father, Michael, my mother, Lisa, and my uncle, Robert. The subject line struck like a thrown stone. Board decision, foundation dissolution, and Q4 management fee. My vision tightened as I opened it. The message was blunt, clinical, almost smug in its efficiency. The board has voted to liquidate all foundation assets. Irene's curatorial contract is terminated effective immediately. Her residency stipend is revoked. A monthly management fee of $10,000 will be implemented at once. I felt a slow chill bleed through my body. Before I could even swallow, another set of messages rolled in their replies. My father, Kurt. A difficult but necessary step. My mother, softer but no different in meaning. Agreed. And finally Michelle, with her trademark final verdict, execute. Have you ever felt like you were the ghost in your own family story? A background extra in the narrative of people who claim to love you? If so, you understand the way my chest tightened, how it didn't collapse, didn't break, just compressed for a single suspended breath before leveling out. I didn't cry. I didn't call my mother in a rage. My mind went still, terrifyingly still. Execute, I whispered into the emptiness of the archive. Fine, I lifted my head. Margaret, the 74-year-old archivist who had worked beside Aunt Helen for 4 decades, stood at a distance, watching me with a pale, concerned expression. She could feel the shift. She always could. Margaret, I said, keeping my voice perfectly even. Lock the main gallery doors. We're initiating lockdown. No entry, no exit unless I authorize it. She didn't question me. She simply nodded. God bless that woman, and went straight to secure the entrance. Headed for Aunt Helen's office. My office now closed the door behind me and locked it. Then I sat down at her massive mahogany desk and opened my laptop. I didn't go to my inbox. I went directly into the asset management system. My fingers moved without hesitation. Step 1. Internal inventory. I navigated to the administrative interface and triggered the curator's seal. Helen and I had built the protocol years ago for exactly this type of emergency. The seal meant that not a single artwork could be shifted, logged for sale, or relocated, not even between rooms, without 2 separate authorization codes. Mine and Margaret's. In an instant. The digital inventory froze like ice. Step 2. External holdings. 60% of the collection, our crown jewels, weren't on site. They were housed off-location at Fortress, the ultra-secure fine art storage facility in Delaware. I picked up the secure line. Fortress Storage. How may I assist you? This is Irene Hayes with the Hayes Foundation. I'm initiating a full asset lockdown. Authorization Delta 7. A brief silence followed. Then the representative responded, calm and crisp. Ms. Hayes, Delta 7 initiates a complete freeze. Please confirm. I confirm. All works under Vault 7C are to be sealed immediately. No transfers. No movement. No access. Effective now. No exceptions, not even board members. Understood, Ms. Hayes. Vault 7C is now under full preservation lock. Nothing will be released. I ended the call. Michelle thought she had fired an employee. She had no idea she'd just tried to sell a $15 million collection controlled solely by me. And now I had shut the gates on her. Naturally, the calls began in a frenzy. First, my mother, Lisa. Her name flashed across the screen in a photo she insisted was flattering. I let it ring out. Her voicemail arrived seconds later. Irene, what on earth do you think you're doing? Next came Michelle. Her tone wasn't fearful, she didn't do fear. It was that irritated, dismissive cadence she'd always used with me, even in childhood. You've locked the archive accounts. You're creating problems. Irene, Suarez is waiting for the catalogue. Unlock it immediately. As if I'd knocked over one of her designer handbags. Then my father. Straight to voicemail again. I don't know what kind of stunt this is, but it ends now. Your uncle and Michelle have spent a year arranging this liquidation. You're embarrassing us. Act like a professional. A professional. That was almost funny. I didn't answer any of them. Not one. I sat in Aunt Helen's quiet office, letting their messages pile up, listening to people who weren't upset for my sake. Only upset because their personal ATM had suddenly spit out an error code. Then my phone lit with a text Michelle's style. Of course. Calling would imply a mutual exchange. Michelle didn't converse. She issued commands. Her message read, I don't know what you think you accomplished by calling Fortress. It doesn't matter. Our lawyers will handle the seal by morning. You're only making this harder on yourself. You have 24 hours to vacate the apartment before we change the locks. I typed back, me finger steady. The apartment is part of my curatorial contract and the art belongs to the foundation. Not to you. The 3 little dots appeared instantly. She was angry. Good. Her reply came back. And it was the one that finally broke everything. You are the foundation we're dissolving. You're not family. Irene, you're just the help. And the help is being fired. The help. The word just hung there in the air. All those years of service, of care, of dedication. All the nights I sat with Helen, so my parents and my sister could go on vacation. All of it reduced to a single dismissive word. That text wasn't just an insult. It was a green light. It was the moral permission I needed to do what had to be done next. The next morning, I wasn't in my apartment. I was sitting in the quiet, leather-bound office of David Fields. David was 68 with a kind face and eyes that had seen absolutely everything. He had been Aunt Helen's estate lawyer for 30 years and he greeted me with a sad, knowing smile. Irene, he said, gesturing for me to sit. I've been waiting for this call for 3 years. Helen told me this day would come. I placed the print out of Michelle's email on his desk. The one with the $10,000 demand. They say they're liquidating the entire collection. They're terminating my contract. David, can they do this? David put on his reading glasses and studied the email. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. Well, he said slowly, they can certainly try. He turned his large monitor toward me. Your Aunt Helen was a brilliant woman. Irene also a very suspicious one. She structured this foundation in 2 parts. He pulled up the first document. This is the operating board. This is your family, Michael, Lisa, Robert, and Michelle. They control the day-to-day operations, the budget, the gallery hours, the payroll. He looked at me over his glasses. And yes, technically they do have the authority to terminate your employment as curator. My heart sank. The air went out of my lungs. So that's it. They win. No, David said, holding up a finger. You're not listening. I said they control operations. They made a critical orgo mistake. They confused operations with ownership. He clicked to a different file. It was a heavy scanned document. The original trust indenture. Helen created a second entity. David said, his voice dropping. It's called the Preservation Trustee. The operating board manages the budget. But the Preservation Trustee, that person holds absolute, total ironclad veto power over the disposition, sale, or liquidation of any asset. They cannot sell so much as a picture frame without the trustee's written approval. I leaned forward, my heart pounding. Who is it? Who is the trustee? David smiled. He scrolled down to the signature page and tapped his finger on a single line. You are Irene. I stared at the screen. My own name, Irene Hayes. Appointed upon the death of Helen Hayes. I don't understand. I stammered. I never signed this. I would have remembered. Oh, you signed it, David said, his eyes twinkling. It was part of your official curatorial employment contract. Page 42. Appendix C. Helen was terrified they would do exactly this. She wanted your authority hidden, buried in plain sight until the moment they showed their hand. It continued. They can fire you as curator. That's fine. But you are, and have been for 3 years, the sole preservation trustee. You have the final say on every single piece of art in that collection. In effect, Irene, you own the kill switch. I sat back, the sheer brilliant genius of it washing over me. All this time, I thought I was the help. Aunt Helen had made me the boss. David picked up his phone. Now then, he said, I believe it's time we sent your family a formal cease and desist letter. Shall we? David's cease and desist letter hit them like a freight train. The calls from Sabby's stopped. The panicked texts from my father stopped. There was just silence, a stunned, furious silence. But David wasn't celebrating. He called me back to his office that afternoon. The letter will stop the liquidation, he said, tapping a pen on his desk. It freezes them, but I'm worried about something else. He turned his monitor back to me, showing the foundation's financial ledger. Michelle has been managing the operating budget for 3 years. I've been looking at her expenses. He highlighted a line item. A wire transfer for $150,000, paid out 6 months ago to a vendor called Fine Art Restoration Services. I've never heard of them, I said, my stomach tightening. I never authorized any restoration. They're an LLC based in Delaware formed last year with no public-facing business. David said, Irene, I think she's been skimming. I drove back to the foundation. A new sick feeling creeping into my veins. I found Margaret in the archives carefully recalling a set of lithographs. Margaret, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Those dagger sketches, the ones Michelle insisted on sending out for cleaning last year. Where are they? Margaret frowned. Vault 4. She was very particular about them. Said they needed climate stabilization. We walked into the climate-controlled vault. There they were, 6 small, beautifully framed sketches of ballerinas and women by Dios and Mary Cassatt. Margaret put on her white cotton gloves and carefully lifted the first one from the rack. She held it under the bright raking light of the inspection table. She was quiet for a long time. Margaret, the paper, she whispered. She wasn't talking to me. It's not right. It's too new. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small, powerful jeweler's loupe, the kind used to inspect brushwork and signatures. She pressed it to her eye and leaned in close, scanning the surface. Her hand started to shake. Irene, she said, her voice trembling. Get the others. We pulled all 6 one by one. She inspected them. With each one, her face grew paler. Finally, she looked up at me, her eyes wide with a horror I had never seen before. This isn't a sketch, Irene. Look, she handed me the loupe. There's no charcoal dust. There's no tooth. It's a dot matrix. She backed away from the table. It's a print. An extremely sophisticated museum quality fake. But it's a print. They're all prints. I had to grab the edge of the table to study myself. Oh, God. Oh, no. It all crashed into place. This wasn't just about skimming $150,000 through a fake restoration company. That was just the invoice for the crime. Michelle had stolen the originals. She had replaced 6 priceless sketches worth millions, all on their own with near-perfect fakes. And the liquidation, the Grand Sabi's auction. It wasn't just a cash grab. It was a cover-up. She was trying to sell the entire collection, fakes and all, before a real expert, a real buyer could ever get close enough to spot the fraud. She wasn't just a bully. She was a high art thief. And she had just tried to sell the evidence of her crime. It didn't take long. The gallery doors burst open, slamming against the stops. Michelle stormed in, flanked by my father, Michael, my mother, Lisa, and my uncle Robert. Their faces were flushed, their eyes furious. They were clutching copies of David's cease and desist letter. "What is the circus?" Irene Michelle shouted, her voice echoing in the main gallery. "The preservation trustee. Who in the hell do you think you are?" I was standing calmly in the center of the room. David Fields and Margaret stood with me. "I'm the person Aunt Helen trusted," I said, my voice cold and even. "You're done," my father yelled, pointing a shaking finger at me. "We may not be able to sell the art, but we still run this place. And the operating board just voted. You are fired. Now, pack your things and get out of my sister's apartment." Actually, David Fields interjected, his voice polite but firm. "You can't fire her, and it's not his apartment." He slid the heavy trust indenture across the main table. "If you'll direct your attention to clause 14B, the preservation trustee holds full and total veto power over all decisions made by the operating board. You can't fire her. You can't change the locks. You can't in fact do anything at all without her express written consent." The color drained from Michelle's face. The arrogance, the confidence, it all evaporated. She looked at my father, then at David, and then at me. She finally understood. She had lost. "But that's not why we're here," I said quietly. I nodded to Margaret. She walked over to an easel and placed one of the small framed sketches on it. "One of the fakes. It's beautiful, isn't it?" I asked, walking closer to it. "A perfect copy?" I was wondering. "Michelle, how much did it cost you?" "A small part of the $150,000 you embezzled." My parents looked confused. "Embezzlement?" My mother whispered, "Irene, what are you talking about?" Michelle's composure shattered. The mask of the high-powered executive was gone, replaced by the terrified face of someone who had been caught. "Irene," she stammered, taking a step toward me. Her voice was suddenly desperate, pleading. "Irene, please, this is family. We can fix this. We can work this out." I looked right into her eyes. The same eyes that had dismissed me my entire life. "You already fixed this. Michelle, via email. Remember?" I turned to David. David picked up his own phone. "Michelle Hayes," he said, "we have documented evidence of 12 counts of wire fraud and grand-scale art theft." And as for the authorities, just then the gallery doors opened again, this time quietly. 2 detectives in suits stepped inside. Boston Police. Anti-fraud unity, the taller one said, his eyes locking onto my sister. "Michelle Hayes, you need to come with us." My mother let out a small, strangled cry. My father just stumbled back as if he'd been punched, collapsing onto a gallery bench. Michelle. She just stood there frozen as the detectives cuffed, her hands behind her back, and led her out of the gallery, past the priceless art she had tried to steal. Michelle was convicted. The trial was fast. The evidence was overwhelming. Most of the original pieces were recovered from a private undated vault in Switzerland, though 2 were gone forever, sold on the black market. My parents, bankrupted by the legal fees and the shame, sold their house in Boston and moved to Florida. They were ruined. I, as the sole trustee, took control. I dissolved the old operating board and reformed the Helen Hayes Foundation. I brought in community leaders, art historians, and educators. I made Margaret the head of archives. With a real salary, we turned the gallery into what Helen had always wanted: a true non-profit dedicated to educating and inspiring the public. I sat with David in the office a few weeks later. "I still don't understand why," I said. "It wasn't just the money, was it?" "No," David said, shaking his head. "She needed you to fail." Irene, it's a classic tragic dynamic. The golden child and the scapegoat. Michelle's entire identity, her entire sense of self-worth was built on being the winner of the family. And to be the winner, she needed you to be the loser. She wasn't just trying to steal the collection. She was trying to steal the one thing you loved, the one thing you were genuinely better at. I thought about that for a long time. Later that day, Margaret came up to my office. She was holding a small sample painting, a little seascape, not particularly well done, of the Boston Harbor. "I found this in Aunt Helen's private storage," Margaret said, her eyes soft. "She painted it herself in college. It's not worth anything, of course, but the note on the back, it just said for Irene. She handed it to me. It was monetarily worthless, but it was priceless. I hung it on the wall right above my desk in the place of honor, where a Degas or a sergeant might have gone that night." For the first time in years, the gallery was quiet. There were no more whispers of money, no more plots, no more valuations, just the peaceful, familiar smell of oil, paint, and old paper. And as I walked upstairs to my apartment, to my home, I finally felt at peace.